Gale Force is a one-of-a-kind coaster located at Playland's Castaway Cove in Ocean City, New Jersey. The ride is the only SNS launched El Loco to be produced so far, and honestly, I wonder why there hasn't been more of these made over the other compact launch coasters, such as Skyrocket 2s. Gale Force is one of 4 coasters as well as the main attraction at Castaway Cove, and it's surrounded by 2 other coasters and situated on the right side of the park. Those other 2 coasters are Wild Waves, an E&F Milo roller coaster with lots of airtime and geared towards families, and the SBF Visa spinning coaster, which I'm pretty sure is called Whirlwind, but I can't really remember. For theming, the station has some slight storm printage on the outside, as well as the Gale Force logo. However, on the inside of the station and queue line, there's really not much. For this ride, absolutely no loose articles are allowed on the ride, and once you reach the station, an attendant uses a wand to search for any loose articles left in your pockets, and all items can be placed in bins provided on the station. If you go on a day where the park is dead, you may sit in the station for a while. Gale Force requires at least the first 2 rows to be filled, but they prefer to have all 3 rows filled. The trains on Gale Force are kind of weird. They're a 3-row, 4-seater train where the seats are right on the floor. These are the same seats and restraints found on the free spins made by SNS. They're wide, comfy, and the vests don't lock up, so you get to feel all the forces. Once the ride begins, you take a slow launch down the track and go up a short amount of the tower. Then you roll back and launch backwards up into the dive into the station. Once the train rolls back down the dive, you hit the full power launch and fly up the tower. The train twists 180 degrees, which gives a great pop of airtime and laterals. And as far as the airtime goes, you stay out of your seat as you crest the tower, and as you start to head down the drop, Gale Force makes you fly out even further, and it gives you some of the strongest ejector airtime out of any coaster I've been on. And I've been on quite a bit and a lot of airtime focused coasters. The drop is simply put violent and intense. Once you hit the valley, you slam back down into your seat and get some great positive G's through the valley. And honestly, this is a one-of-a-kind element coming up next, the Kickflip. This starts out like an inversion, but twists out into an outer banked airtime hill. So first, it starts with positives, then you get some amazing sustained ejector airtime and amazing laterals. The first time I ever rode Gale Force, I was simply dumbfounded by the intensity of this ride so far, and after that, you just keep going. Next up is another powerful valley and a twist up into a non-inverting inland, which gives some great airtime over the top, and slam back down to another intense valley, and the ride once again pulls up into a non-inverting dive loop, which gives some great airtime, and as you twist down into the station again, you get some great laterals. In the past, you would come to a stop after going down the launch and rolling back into the station. However, the ride now has a double cycle, so you repeat the amazing course again, and this time it feels even more powerful and faster. In terms of smoothness, Gale Force is very smooth, but occasionally you will feel the train shuffle from the suspension giving a little. When Gale Force first opened, it had a strong vibration throughout the entire ride. However, it was retracked after its first season with Track from Intermountain Lift, who usually manufactures the track for SNS in terms of their normal coasters, not their free spins, as RMC manufactures the free spin track, which many people know that already, but I figured I'd put that in there just in case you didn't know. For whatever reason, SNS contracted an Italian company to make the track, but the track was subpar. Now, before I asked why there aren't more of these launched El Locos, and that's based on the ride alone. The ride experience is obviously very good, and it's one of my favorite coasters, but the main reason there's only one of these is because of the amount of downtime they have. Gale Force was meant to open in 2016, but was delayed until 2017 due to needing a new train, new track, because it was misaligned, and a lot of reprogramming. The ride had also been modified throughout the years, adding trims, adjusting the speeds on them, and of course, the ride just goes down a lot because it's an SNS. If you've ever dealt with SNS before in terms of operating their rides or just trying to get on one, you know that they do not like to work. Mentioning the trims, usually enthusiasts don't typically like trims, and I am a big hater on trim brakes, especially on rides where they aren't really necessary or just too hard. Like for example, Candemonium's final trim, in my opinion, is way too hard, and Intimidator's 305's trim on the airtime hill towards the end of the layout is totally necessary, but it just slows down the ride so much and kills the mood. Now, the trims on Gale Force are absolutely necessary. You don't really feel them that much, but they do slow down the ride just enough so where the G-forces are tolerable to the human body and don't hurt. Also, not to mention, the ride already flies through the course, so it's, in terms of pacing, the trims don't really hurt them. And in terms of ranking, Gale Force gets a 9 out of 10 for me. The ride is powerful, intense, and fairly re-rideable. The shuffle does get to me after a few rides, but it's also pay per ride, so, you know, I'm not really going to be forking over that much money to be riding this over and over again. Currently, it sits at my number 25 spot at a 212 coasters, and is currently my 4th favorite coaster in New Jersey behind Toro, Jersey Devil, and Nitro. And in my opinion, and I've made a video about this before, this is truly the best triple launch compact coaster that is out there. Better than the Skyrocket 2, better than Intamin's, and basically any other company that makes it probably can't even touch the intensity and greatness of this ride. Now typically when rides are this intense, the general public doesn't really like it, but to me, every time I go to Playland's Castaway Cove, I can see the general public enjoying it and saying that this ride is absolutely off the walls. Hope everybody enjoyed this review, and if you did, make sure you guys leave a like on the video, maybe even subscribe for more theme park content. Leave your thoughts on Gale Force down below, and if they should make more of them, and once again, thanks for watching everybody.